flag down and we couldn't get it up again.
Oh.
You had to be real smart.
Yeah.
And,
Probably.
yeah.
We're back on the record in the independent cab matter. It's 1 o'clock on 16 August, and this time is set for the resolution of any issues on Exhibit 3, which has been reserved for Mr. Carson's prepared materials. And you were to fix those up and give them to council, and has that been done?
Yes, sir.
I assume you are moving
At this time, I move for Exhibit 3 applicants. Exhibit 3.
objections.
I flipped through this. I thought I was supposed to take out the law citations, but they're in there and you guys notice, so it's not a big deal.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other?
Well, I felt like you were going to say something to the law objections. I thought that was the case too, no?
So there's some statements of law in there.
Right.
My interpretation is it's an attempt then to say how he is complying. I don't, I frankly don't believe there's any problem. He could have handed us the law if he wanted to, and
Right.
asked us to take notice of it. I'm just going to make my record. Do you want to lodge an objection?
No, I just kind of wanted to hear what your.
So here's my view. Is it relevant? It's relevant to the extent that his testimony made it somehow relevant. So it comes in for that purpose. Is there any privilege or confidentiality in it? No. Is there?
403.
Huh?
403.
Are there? Yeah, right. Exactly. Is there anything so outrageously hearsay that no reasonable person would rely on it for any purpose? No. So that's the 233B standard. So I think it comes in, and
Okay.
I'm prepared to put it in. I will say, which my colleagues on the board have heard me say many times, weight, not admissibility. It's the weight you want to give this document. It's not admissibility in an administrative proceeding. So that would be my ruling that I will, one of my favorite judges in the Central District of California would say, you each now have 1 minute to say I'm wrong.
You got a minute?
A whole minute in the Central District.
I don't have any objections.
Okay, then 3 is admitted.
I should say as redacted. As redacted based upon the previous, compared to what was previously presented.
The previously presented thing I refused to mark, so it is not
Okay.
anywhere in the record. Thank you, Mr. Ricker. And then, of course, Mr. Balaban.
You heard you say 115.
He, but he's right there behind you, and I was getting ready to say he's chomping at the bit. He's ready to go early.
Can't wait to do it.
Can't wait to get off that stand. Oh, I will note for the record that that board order that was marked as Exhibit 7 has been provided. It has been marked, and I am admitting it under official notice as number 7. And my purpose, counsel, for doing that is where when somebody calls out a specific document, we get to deliberation. We don't want to be digging through all this. We want to look at the one document that's cited to us. Mr. Balaban, you recall you're under oath and you're under examination by Mr. Carson, and Mr. Carson, you may continue.
Thank you. George, we left off with, I prefaced this as saying, please tell me if the following statements are true. And I asked you, Legion Stadium opened and it opened recently. I think we
Yes.
should respond. Okay. And then I asked you about the capacity, but anyway, isn't it true that since December of 2019, that the convention center expanded and opened up the West Wing?
I believe that's true, yes.
Do you agree that the West Wing is larger than the expansion of Mandalay Bay's conference centers?
I don't know that to be true, but if you state it's true, I would believe it.
That's all right. Okay. Then I got three yes or no questions. You do daily inspections of your vehicles to make sure everything is operating correctly? Yes or no? Your company?
Yes,
Okay, not you personally. Your drivers all have TA permits, background inspections, medical cards, and Nevada driver's license, correct?
what is it, would,
TA permits,
yes,
background inspected, they've been in backgrounded, right? Fingerprinted?
yes.
Okay. They have medical cards issued to them
DOT physicals, yes,
and Nevada driver's licenses.
yes.
Okay. And my understanding, correct? Okay.
Go ahead. I believe I have some that have Arizona driver's licenses because that's allowed for drivers that are in Laughlin.
Oh, that's fine. Perfect. That's understandable.
And again,
Oh, I'm sorry. Just louder. Okay, yep.
yeah, so the
Got it.
record
Sorry,
picture,
I apologize.
So
we don't have a stenographer.
just the Laughlin operations? Because they probably live in Bullhead or something like that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, before you put a vehicle into service, does the TA inspect it?
Before it goes into service, yes.
Okay. And does the TA also inspect that vehicle at least one time a year?
Annually, yes.
Okay. Do you think your vehicles and your drivers are a safer alternative than Uber and Lyft?
Yes.
Do you think the questions I just asked you about daily inspections, drivers, the TA permits is true for the entire industry?
That their drivers would have those things? I think that's required by law, yes.
Okay. They wouldn't be in operations if they were, all right? I mean,
I'm not positive that's a law, but I believe that they have to do all of those things.
okay, that's fair. I can ask the questions to them too. If you believe, which you testified, that you are a safer alternative, would you say that traveling in a taxi cab is protecting the safety and welfare of the traveling public?
Versus something? But
You believe that you're a safer alternative to Uber and Lyft, right?
yes, I do.
Okay, and you know that 706, 151, part of the legislative purpose of 706 is to provide protection to the traveling public, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if you believe you're a safer alternative, which you said you would, do you think traveling in your taxi cab versus an Uber, Lyft, TNC, whatever, is better protecting the traveling public?
Yes, I believe that the cab drivers are better vetted than the TNC drivers. Yes.
Would you agree that the more rides that a taxi cab company such as yourself get versus TNCs is better for the taxi cab industry as a whole?
Yes.
Why is that?
The more trips we get is more revenue into the industry, more revenue for the tax cap authority. State of Nevada, I believe it's a better alternative.
Okay, I had a few points. You get the ride, you make money, your drivers make money.
Yes.
You get a ride, the TA gets money, correct?
Yes.
You don't make money when Uber picks up a ride, correct?
Correct.
And the TA doesn't get money if Uber picks up a ride.
Correct.
Okay. I mentioned earlier Jason Awad's name.
Yes.
Do you agree with this statement? The more cabs, the less Uber and Lyfts.
It would depend on when that statement was made.
Okay. How about today?
No,
Why not?
I don't believe putting out more taxi cabs stops TNCs from operating.
Okay, but would you believe that more cab rides for the industry is better than Uber and Lyft getting them?
I believe it's better for the cab industry to get a ride than to not get a ride. I do not believe that having more cabs in the street prevents there more TNCs coming on the street.
Okay, hypothetically, if taxi cab authority here gave you the number of medallions that Uber and Lyft currently have active permits, I think it was 29,000, something, that latest number. Do you think their numbers would be that substantial?
If
If you're allowed to operate 29,000 cabs on the road, do you think there will still be 29,000 Uber and Lyfts?
Yes,
Do you think that it can be supported, the traveling demand?
no.
Why do you think that there would still remain 30,000, 29,000 Uber drivers if there was 29,000 cabs on the road?
Because I think the Uber model is a different model than the taxi cab model. It is subsidized for drivers. It is proved when we allocated the cars that we allocated back in 2015, and we asked for all those allocations. We had, at least me, had no idea that in fact Uber was going to be able to operate at a loss for 7 years, that there was going to end up being 40,000 TNC drivers, that Frias was going to go under, that the pandemic was going to hit. In hindsight, what we did in 2015 was put out way too many medallions in the industry that we just pay for, or the industry pays for, and aren't necessarily using because the ridership for the taxis isn't there. The TNCs that we're competing against are competing at an unfair advantage because they're subsidizing it through the tech money that's invested into it. So because we're competing against an industry that's operating at a loss, and we can't operate it. I guess we could, but no one's going to be able to sustain 7 years of running at a loss like they do and stay in business. So I don't think more medallions stops them from doing what they're doing. They thought they were going to run us out of business. They didn't, but I don't believe well, it's proved. We put a whole bunch of medallions on the street. A bunch of them were allocated, and it did not stop them from doing what they did. So again, I don't believe making 29,000 more medallions is going to stop them from doing what they're doing. They're going to do what they want to do, which is continue to keep putting their cars out as many drivers as they can get, and they're going to subsidize it until their stockholders won't let them do it.
You heard my opening statement, right? When mentioning the CEO of Uber, the quotes that I gave.
Yes.
Have you heard those quotes before?
Yes, and I read that Uber has last month in their annual meeting, they reported they have more customers and more drivers than ever in the history of Uber.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Do you think Uber and Lyft are providing a taxi cab service?
They're not providing a taxi cab service. They don't have a meter. They're providing transportation, but no, not a taxi cab service. They're not a taxi.
Do you believe that they're performing the same function as a taxi cab without the meter?
I believe they're providing transportation. It's not done the way a taxi cab is. So it's a limousine provides transportation, a shuttle provides transportation, a taxi does, and a TNC does. They're all transportation, but they're all different types of transportation. It's
Okay.
not the same.
Not the same. Do they pick up passengers at one point and drop them off at a second point?
Yes, they do.
And do they receive compensation for that?
Yes, they do.
In a taxi cab, do you pick up a person and drop them off at a specific location?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do in a limo. Yes, I do in a shuttle bus. Yes, I do in a lot of things, but yes.
Okay.
You mentioned that Uber, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Uber and Lyft have a different business model than taxi cabs.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Have you given up on the Uber and Lyft market?
I don't think I know what that means.
I mean, their market is passengers. Do you agree with that?
I have not given up on picking up people. I have no intention on picking up people for $2 or $3 or $4 and losing money. So I'm not competing for that customer.
Okay. Would you agree with me that Uber's rates are rising on the strip?
I don't, it, again, when you ask about business models, their model is change the price whenever they want to change the price. So I guess sometimes yes, sometimes no.
And you mentioned they can do whatever they want.
That's what it appears, yes.
Okay.
I don't know that for a fact, but that's what it looks like, yeah.
Okay. You mentioned above, just a few minutes ago, that it was your testimony that more cab rides is better for the taxi cab industry, correct?
More cabs turn into more revenue, which, yes, the cab companies, cab drivers, Taxicab Authority, State of Nevada, all share in. So yes, I think that's good for the industry.
Back to 706, the legislative declaration, you know, where they say you need to foster sound economic conditions. Are you familiar with that?
Yes,
Okay. If more cab rides is better for the industry, isn't that actually improving economic conditions as opposed to fostering them?
I don't understand the question.
Okay, all right. You said that more cab rides is better for the industry, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and if the more cab rides that you get, better for the industry, isn't that actually improving economic conditions in the industry?
I would, yes, I think that makes sense. Yes.
Taxi cabs are all regulated the same way, correct?
In Las Vegas, yes.
Yes, I'm
Clark
sorry.
County, yes.
Yeah, Clark County. Yellow Checker Star follows the same rules as Desert and Virgin, correct?
We have the same rates and we have the same rules to operate on. Different business models, but yes, the same rate structure and the same statutes.
Okay. If I got a certificate, I'd have to follow the same rules as you.
Yes,
I wouldn't be able to do what Uber does and change the meter rate.
not without applying to the board.
Okay, and even if I did apply to the board and I said I wanted $5 a mile, you guys would all come in and have to agree to it. They would have to put it to a vote, correct? It's not something I could unilaterally do.
The rates, again, I'm not an attorney. I believe the regulations are, the rates have to be uniform.
Can you think of any statutes or regulations that are on the books? You're obviously very familiar with 706. Could you think of any statute or regs that would allow me, a new applicant, to get an advantage over your companies?
Ask that again. What is it?
Okay, is there any statute or regulations on book that you are aware of that would allow me as a new applicant to get some form of advantage over your companies, your existing companies?
No, I think it's the reverse.
Okay. You have the advantage.
Yes,
Okay. I don't. Coming in.
not necessarily because of the regulations, because you're starting a new business and have no history for all kinds of things, insurance and unemployment rates and things like that.
Okay. True. Now, you mentioned, I want to ask you this, and Have you ever heard the term common motor carrier?
Yes.
What does that mean to you?
I think of that as the paid transportation business.
Okay, and you mentioned shuttle buses, limos, Uber and Lyft. Do you believe those are common motor carriers?
Yeah, I would lump them all together as common motor.
How about like the non-emergency transportation companies?
Yeah, I believe those would be motor carriers. Yeah. I don't know. Again, not an attorney. I know technically, but I believe they have to have a license with the NTA and a tariff. And so, yeah, again, I don't know the actual legal definition of motor carrier, but they're probably in there.
Okay,
Tow truck driver, tow trucks are, I think. So, yeah.
household good movers.
Yes.
Okay, they're all regulated. Okay, that's fine. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I apologize. I mean, I know probably 30% of the story, but you used to own a limousine company with your brother and sister, right?
Brother, not sister. Yes.
Okay, and that was called On Demand Sedan.
On-demand sedan and limousine. Yes.
Okay, and did you do any of the day-to-day operations for the limousine company?
When it's for the first 10 years of its operation, but not the last 10 years of its operation.
Okay.
I was involved in the repair and maintenance of them, but not in the driver side of it.
Okay. Are you familiar well, let me ask you this. Do you own on-demand sedan today?
We sold on-demand sedan and limousine.
Did you maintain any ownership of it or anything?
The asset purchase agreement was a portion cash and a portion stock in the company that bought it. So I
Indirectly?
have stock in the people that bought it. Yes.
Okay, so it's like,
Not publicly traded stock. It's
yeah, so if I like bought GM stock, I'm not an
not
owner.
operating it. You're not a stockholder.
Okay, do you have any day-to-day decision-making on the,
I'm not an employee of Captain. I'm just a stockholder.
okay, stockholder? And you mentioned Captain. I imagine that is the company that does your universal dispatch.
Yeah, I don't own that business. I think Captain is a conglomerate of different things. I don't know what their structure is. There's Captain Inc., there's subsidiaries. Part of that Captain has a technology company somewhere within that organization. Again, I don't know the details of what it actually is, but that is the company, that technology company is the company that I lease buy software from for running my company, as well as buy my meters from, as well as use for my dispatching. Yes.
Okay. And I haven't been to your place in a while, but do they still operate out of your offices where Desert Cab are?
Captain leases space from the company which my family owns. It's not Desert Cab, but another company that owns the property. Yes.
Okay.
They're a tenant on the same property as Desert Cab.
Okay, I don't want to get into too much. Is the owner of the property multi-service leasing?
No.
Okay. Multi-service leasing is that the one that's owned a third and a third for the siblings?
Multi-service leasing is owned 1/3. Yes. Me and my brother and sister. That is the repair facility.
Right. And so you have two different corporations, right? Multi-service leasing, which owns the vehicles and stuff like that, and you lease them to Desert Cab? Or does Desert Cab actually own their own vehicles
Currently,
currently?
yeah. Multi-service leasing is a repair facility. That's it.
Okay.
Desert Cab is a series LLC. Each of the series,
How many series do you have?
55, 58.
And you put, let me guess, 5 to 10 vehicles per series?
10 medallions per series and anywhere from 5 to 11 cars per series.
Okay. And are all the series LLCs owned the same 1/3 membership interest?
I'm not an attorney. The series are owned by a Container, which is an LLC, which is owned by a parent, of which the parent is owned 1/3.
So I'm not gonna go there. I don't care. That's your business. Being a part of the limousine industry with your family and BJ for, I would say, better part of 20 years when Mr. Winter helped you get the certificate. Is that right?
20+ years, yes.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the term Kellying?
Yes.
Can you tell me what your understanding of that term is?
Traditionally, my understanding is traditionally in the limousine business, there is prearranged work, which is someone calling and requesting and making a reservation for a ride versus what we called Kelly's, which would be more like a walk-up, or somebody would walk out and decide right then they wanted a limousine. They hadn't prearranged it, thought about it for a wedding, prom or something. They walk out the door and they're like, oh, there's taxis, there's limo. I want a limo. So they would ask to try to take that limousine right then. That's what I consider a Kelly.
Okay, so just to summarize, just so the board understands, limos, SUVs, sedans, the Sprinter buses, they sit outside the hotels.
If they're
Most
allowed, if they're allowed. Yes.
Hotels, restaurants, stuff like that, correct?
Yeah, I mean, certain hotels that have contracts with certain cars, companies that only allow their cars to be there. Maybe their other ones are hiding somewhere else, but yes, they're all over town.
And they wait outside until somebody says, I want to charter your vehicle.
That's what they're supposed to do. Yes, that can happen, yes.
Okay. Do you think that affects your business in any way? As far as revenue, I'm just gonna, are they taking your rides by staging?
Not if they charge their legal tariff.
Okay. So it's a free for all. If they're clean.
If they're charging their tariff, I don't believe the person that's going to pay $60 to jump in that limousine they're differentiating that from a taxi cab. If that limousine operator or whatever you want to call that person that's in that car is willing to take the person for $5 or $10, that would be, it's against the law, but yes, that would compete against me like an illegal operator. It's a legal license, but the person that's in it's breaking the law.
Okay, and obviously being around the industry, you've heard that happening a lot of times, people cutting their tariff rates or something like that.
I believe it happens all the time, yes.
And if they get caught, do they get impounded, do you know, or?
Not as much as they should, I don't think, but yes, I believe that happens, yeah.
Okay. And there are specific on the hotel properties called taxi stands, right?
Yes.
And there's also regulations that says a limousine cannot be within 50 feet of a taxi cab stand.
I think there's something like that, yeah.
Okay. And to differentiate, I think, going back to probably the old PUC days, and the reason a limousine was a limousine is because it was the hourly rate as opposed to an on-demand rate.
Yeah, it was more of an hourly rate. I mean, it had a completely different tariff structure. Yeah, that was
And they wanted them to set the bar higher so as not to compete with the taxi cab industry.
that's my understanding.
Did you hear yesterday, I was getting asked some questions about the 63 applications that were filed at the NTA during the last year and a half?
Yes.
Did you intervene on any of those applications?
George Balaban, Desert Cab?
Yes.
No.
Virgin?
No.
You're part of a conglomerate. I don't want to say it wrong, but an association, correct?
Livery Operators Association, yes.
And what is the Livery Operators Association? Who is,
It's an association of limousine and cab operators in Las Vegas.
okay, and who are the cab operators in that business that are members?
Desert, Virgin Valley, Whittlesey Henderson, YCS and UCAB.
And what do you guys do? What is that? What's the association for? What's its purpose?
Its purpose to lobby legislators, watch regulations, basically handle issues that we have within the industry that we want someone to go out and do rather than doing it individually. Back in the day, it was something would come up and one of us would have to figure out how this is going to happen. As an association, we can pay a executive director, which we have that. For example, right now we have issues with citations being written for drivers downtown, lots of tickets and things. So we talked to her to reach out to the Taxicab Authority and reached out to the city to go handle those things for us. So we didn't have that association. I would have to be calling each of the other owners to figure out who's going to pay to go do this. So we kind of pool our money to have somebody go do it.
Right, and that's the issue of them writing tickets based on photographs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, there's other issues, but yeah, that's just
that's
one
just
example.
one of the issues you're handling?
Yes.
Okay. Is that organization also used to intervene on people's applications?
We definitely monitor what's happening in front of the Taxicab Authority and the MTA. And if we see that there's something happening that we think is detrimental to either industry, we could intervene, yes.
Do you agree with me that the members that you just said make up 80% of the taxi cab industry?
The members that I mentioned
The
that are
taxi
part
cab.
of the LOA, not all of you.
Correct, just the members that you mentioned. Would you say that you, Yellow Checker Star, New Cab, Whittlesey and Henderson and Virgin make up 80%, roughly 80% of the taxi cab industry in Las Vegas?
The medallions, yes.
Medallions, okay.
Yeah, right in that, somewhere in there. Yeah, very close.
How come the LOA didn't intervene on this?
Oh, I don't know. I actually don't. Well, probably again, because there are also limousine operators that are part of the LOA, and this isn't really a matter that is affecting the limousine industry. The interventions that we get involved in on the limousine side, we think can affect the taxicab industry. So probably that, but I don't really recall why it would have been that we didn't have it come through the LOA. Because it was a taxicab, more distinctly a taxicab matter.
Needless to say, all of your members intervene individually.
They'll have to say why they intervened. I intervened why I intervened. I
You
don't
told
know.
me why you were when I
Yeah.
met with you.
Yeah.
So. Okay. Do you know if you intervened in any of those applications, those 63? I know personally your companies didn't, but do you know if the LOA intervened with the NTA in any of those 63 applications?
I don't, again, I'm not sure whether we intervened. We could have been, I'm not sure what the other legal word.
Protestant.
We could have been protestants rather than interveners in some of them. I would venture to guess if there was 63 of them, there would have been ones that we would have either intervened, has to be interveners or protestants in.
And you prepared your written testimony summary, or Mr. Winter provided it, right? Just filed.
Yeah. I
Filed about
prepared
10
it.
days ago?
He typed it up, yes.
Yes, okay. Obviously, that was prepared pre you seeing the two new pro formas, correct?
Before
Yes.
seeing the one.
That's not the same.
It was, my response, my prepared testimony was in regards to the lease model pro forma, not employee pro forma that we just recently saw.
Did you see the updated lease pro forma?
No, I didn't know there was one of those. No.
I don't know what to say.
There's another pro forma?
It's in the book, so I don't know what people look at.
Yes, there was two pro formas that were submitted subsequently to the application, which we had the big fight about with the motion to dismiss. There was a lease model and a driver model.
When I saw it was the employee.
I was unaware. I've not looked at a new lease pro forma.
You mentioned in your statement, your summary statement, I'm just going to call it your statement, that was presented about 10 days ago by Mr. Winter. The proposed application and business plan demonstrate that the applicants are not fit, willing, and able to perform the services of a taxi cab motor company. Is that your testimony?
Yes,
Is that just because you don't believe my pro forma accurately reflects the actual costs?
correct. Yes,
Okay.
I don't believe it financially works.
Okay. So your opinion is that based on the pro forma, can we agree that a pro forma is not actual first?
Yes, it's a pro forma.
You've prepared pro formas in the past, correct?
Yes, I have.
Do they ever match up correctly?
I can't say never, but they're an estimate. Yes,
Based on assumptions,
yes.
historical, anything, whatever.
Well, hopefully not whatever. Yeah. If you're trying to do a pro forma in a business plan, you're going to do the due diligence to figure out what are appropriate revenues, appropriate expenses, but you're going to have to estimate some of those things, but you would research them to find out what market expenses are. So it shouldn't just be, as Keith Gibson said, wild ass guesses. It should be as close to accurate as you can get it. Yes.
And I asked you for a copy of your financial statements, right?
I believe you asked through the attorneys for
Right.
Desert Cabs financials, correct? Yes.
Not provided?
The annual reports are provided to TA, which I think you got to see. I
No.
don't know. I don't know.
After the one that you did see, the report that you did see, the second pro forma,
The employee
the
one,
employee one.
Yes,
Did you go back and compare that to make sure that I included the criticisms of the first one?
I saw that there were many of them, not all of them in there, but yes, I saw that there were many of them that were put in there. Conversions, the meter. So yes, there were a good portion of them that were put into the new form, and not all, but yes, some.
Your costs, operating costs, are not identical to Whittlesey's, correct?
Don't know that.
Okay. Would you guess that they're anywhere close?
I would think they'd be close, sure.
How about yellow checker stars?
On some costs, yes.
I mean,
Maintenance costs, things like that, yes.
okay, fixed costs, $300 a medallion, $70,
Correct.
business license, stuff like that. That's all going to remain the same. But as far as your variable costs, operations, maintenance, breakdown, stuff like that, that's going to differ from company to company.
Well, again, from what I know from being in the industry, the big ones, the maintenance costs, as I talk to the other companies, the maintenance cost is pretty close to what ours. It could vary from 22 cents to 28 cents, depending, but it's going to be in that range. The same with the big one, the wages, because we're all competing for drivers. We're all paying somewhere between 39.5% to 42% in wages, not counting benefits. So, so a lot of the variable costs are very similar.
Okay. Plus or minus, like they say on these polls, plus or minus
A
things.
couple percent on the wages.
Okay,
It can't be much
Yes.
off from that, or the drivers just move around to whoever's paying them.
understandable. I understand your testimony and not going to change your mind is that the application demonstrates that we're not feeling willing and able, but is that only because of the pro forma that you reviewed? And is there anything else in that application that stood out saying, wow, this guy's not, can't get him?
I don't believe what I looked at was the pro forma. I know you personally. I don't think that you're an unmoral person or something, so I don't think there's any question about that. But looking at the pro forma, I would say this, and I've told you this personally.
You're not
It
gonna
doesn't work.
All right.
It just doesn't, so the fact that you're trying to run a cab company that financially will not work it makes you unfit to do it. Now, again, if in fact there's something we don't know, which is you have somebody else that is going to absorb it and operate it for you, that can change your cost structure, then maybe it does work. But you haven't said where that's going to be. But opening a new cab company in a new facility, knowing what I know, it just economically does not work.
Okay, you mentioned in your responses and your stuff that you rented the lot for $3,000 and
$3,500 a month, yes.
Okay. it's not three, but is it 3,000 or 3,500?
I think it was 3,500.
Okay, so
Could have been 3,000. I think it was
Is
3,500.
it a typo or not?
I think it was 3,500, so it could be a typo.
Okay, you were here for the opening statements, correct? And my direct testimony, which was a direct statement.
Yes,
Okay. And
the
you,
PowerPoint?
yeah.
Yes.
You saw the photographs of Las Vegas limousine,
Yes.
okay? And it had mechanics bays, correct?
I mean, I saw a lift. Yeah, it was hard to tell from the pictures, but I saw a hoist, yes. a lift.
Okay. You agree with me that I would be able to, I guess, share costs with that facility as an owner of a taxi cab company and a limousine company?
I don't know.
Do you share costs with, did you share costs with ODS?
Can you do that? Yes.
Yes.
Are you doing that? I don't know.
I know.
Because that's not in the pro forma. In the pro forma, you said you're gonna go rent a spot. So I don't know how big that lot is. I don't know how big that facility is. From the pictures, I would agree that there's nothing that prevents you from sharing space with another transportation company.
And would you agree that since you paid 3,000 or 3,500 for a lot, I might be able to go out and get a lot for $4,000 and share the space? If there's a breakdown or a car needs maintenance, I can drive it over to where my mechanics are.
I do believe that you could do that. I, again, believe if you did that, it is going to increase your costs, efficiency wise, everything. To move the breakdown from your lot to another facility, you're going to tow it over there, push it over there. I mean, if it's right next door, perhaps. I mean, these are all possibilities. It's just, again, makes it much more expensive and inefficient, which makes it harder for you to make money, makes it harder for you to get drivers. Those are the things that I would see the problem with that setup.
Now, I'm going to simplify when it says there was two reasons, my application and my business plan. Now, my business plan, according to the application, is to get a company and lease 35 cars. Is there anything wrong with that? Just that premise?
No, that premise, no, there's nothing.
Okay.
I mean, it's not illegal.
Right. And in fact, you testified earlier that I think during the pandemic, you bought out Bell for Virgin River or Virgin Valley.
Yeah, so yes, my family and the Bell family bought Blue Desert Virgin Valley Cab from the Priuses in March of 19. So it went to the Bell facility, and in that purchase, we've got 75 cars roughly. Of those 75 cars, probably 15 of them were parts cars.
I was going to say 10 were usable.
So we had about 60 cars that were operational. So during the year from March of 19 up until COVID hit, that 1 year, it was run at the Bell facility. And during that entire time, I made zero. I got no distributions, not a single penny of money was paid to me for operating that company for an entire year. And that is with the Bells spreading the cost to operate that across, having Cheryl do extra work, across Bell Trans, Presidential Limousine, Whittlesey Henderson. Still, as a result of that, we made no money. Take that back. We made enough money during that year to actually buy a few new cars, but there were absolutely no distributions. Then COVID hit. Again, that's operating 60 cars for a year, and there was no profit in it. And again, that's what leads me to where I'm at, that 35 just doesn't work. But so yes, it closed during COVID, and Brent wanted out. I begrudgingly bought him out, and now I have it.
And operating it.
I am operating it.
And that company is an all lease company, not employer, correct?
Correct.
How many medallions does that certificate hold?
132 medallions.
And how many are in operations?
We have 110 vehicles, right in that range. And-
Not operating to capacity. I'll just say that.
We are not operating to capacity, again, because there's not a necessity to do it. We're able to grow from the 60, 70, 65 vehicles to the 110 vehicles because I take desert cabs that are old and repaint them and turn them into Virgin Valleys. So Virgin Valley is literally buying cars for $500 a piece that already have a $1,000 meter in them. So again, Virgin Valley is getting a heck of a deal buying stuff from Desert Cab, as Desert Cab is getting new cars because I have a test company that comes in and is willing to pay me 75%, 50% of the price of the car. I would never go buy a new car because there's no business warranting me having more cars. But when I can get the car for $5,000 brand new, because the test company's going to pay for the rest of it, I take a new car. Now I got too many Desert Cabs, so I move that over to Virgin Valley, which again, economies of scale works for me because Virgin Valley didn't have to buy a car. Got a taxi cab for $500 versus 30-some thousand that it's going to cost to put a car in for any new operator.
Do your lease cab drivers take the car home with them?
I believe almost exclusively yes.
So there is no parking that's needed on those, for those vehicles or those employees' vehicles
No, they leave their car there and take my car.
for a week? Their personal car, they leave it on your lot for a week?
Yes,
You assume that liability?
I guess. I haven't had an issue with it, but yes, they park their car and take my car. Now, a lot of mine are team leases, but while they're driving my car, usually their car is at my lot, if that is your question.
What would you say the percentage of them are team leases?
Yeah, it's not a very popular deal because it affects flexibility, how much they can earn. 10%, 15%, a small percentage.
So if you're, let's say, yeah, just the numbers, 15, 20 out of your 110 vehicles?
Yeah, because I have 110 vehicles doesn't mean I have 110 leases because I have to have a bunch of spare cars because they're old Desert Cabs.
Yeah.
So they're breaking down. So I'm leasing 80, 90, maybe. It's nowhere near the number of cars I have. There are a lot of spare cars.
Some people prefer to work during the day. Some people prefer to work during the night. Is that your understanding?
Employee and lease, yeah. I think that would be, a generic that, yes, yeah. There's day people and night people, yes.
No, that's the only reason I'm just, because your team lease, does somebody take it out for the day shift and then tag team off to the other guy and he takes it for the evening? Or do the one person do Monday, the other person does Tuesday, the other person does Wednesday? Do you know that?
That's kind of up to them.
You have no control.
Correct.
Every year you file financial papers, right? With the Taxicab Authority annual reports.
Yes, we do.
Okay. So the TA has access to those documents?
I would assume so, yes.
Okay. And the TA also has access to my unredacted confidential documents, correct?
I assume so, yes.
Okay. Have you seen mine? Unredacted?
Unredacted?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Let me ask you just a question in general. when making a decision, is it better to have more or less information? More. Okay, so if the TA, financial analyst, the board has saw my actual financial statements, your actual financial statements, would they be in the best position to make a decision of whether I'm financially capable of operating taxi cab company?
I have no idea because I don't know who that analyst is, what their experience is. If that analyst knew the industry, I would think, sure, they have more information. If they are good at what they do, yes,
So the more information, the better.
yes.
Okay. Let me direct your attention to your statement here.
That testimony summary thing?
Yeah, I'm just gonna go, we kind of touched on it, I just want to breeze through it, if you don't mind.
No problem.
Before we get to there, do you have 10% of the vehicles going out on your road have a 10, or do you really have a 10% breakdown accident rate daily?
What now?
I thought I wrote down there, so before I changed my page, I thought you testified you have about 10% of your cars on the road have a daily issue with them.
I think Bob asked me how many incidents are happening.
Right.
Yeah, I would say, but an incident would be
Flat tire.
them, well, no, it was more about calling my dispatcher, manual credit card. I can't get through a gate code to go pick some passengers up. So they're not necessarily breakdowns or accidents. They're requests from, again, I call them our customers because the cab drivers, even my employees, I kind of look at as customers, but the lease drivers for sure are customers. So it's dealing with those people that there's that many interactions.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. We went through this. There was about, would you say, I hit most of your concerns in the new pro forma?
In the employee pro forma, I saw, yes, you put a portion of these in, yes.
I have a couple questions about the very last sentence. No expense for top or back signs. See that bottom?
Yes,
Now, I had spoken to a gentleman, I think his name's Chris at Firefly. Do you know him?
I do.
And he told me that there is zero expense. They put it on, I provide the vessel. Is that wrong?
I have a contract with Firefly, and my contract with Firefly is if they put on a brand new digital sign, of which they don't have any, that yes, they'll put their sign on. But the signs that are on my cars that I own, I have to put those on. So I own those. I had to buy them. So they have not provided me with any static signs. They have provided me with some digital signs. The static
Right.
signs I've taken off, I have to use on my next
Now,
car.
I've seen the digital signs. It looks like you ever seen a car with ski rack? You know, looks like they mount it to the doors and the hinges there. and
Yes,
then The digital sign goes right down the middle of it.
correct.
Okay. So if I got those, it would be free of cost. You
It
understand?
would, it would be depending on what your contract with them is.
Right, something I negotiate.
Correct.
Okay.
And you were going to get $100 a month for your cars. They don't have static digital rear signs. So I don't believe that they're going to pay you $100 a month per car and supply you with all that equipment. I could be wrong, but I don't believe that you'll negotiate that deal.
How
That
much,
was my observation.
how much per medallion or vehicle are you getting a month per advertising?
Oh, well, there's a lot of, in my contract, they have to go out a certain number of shifts or I get nothing. So you're not getting paid for any of your spare cars that are sitting around or breakdowns. So there's some qualifiers in there. But if it does run 20 shifts a month, the static ones, I believe it's 125, I believe.
Just 20 shifts, not 20 days, right?
20 shifts.
Okay. And, okay. The other one was, it said no expense for credit card terminals, but I think I addressed that in the
The new pro forma,
pro
yep.
forma that you saw.
Yeah.
Okay. No expenses for turning the cars into taxis, that was addressed, right?
In the new
Yeah.
perform, I saw that in there, yes.
Okay, and you saw where I only purchased 42 cars, I mean 40, I only referenced 40 cars as opposed to 42, and I gave my explanation that since I'm 10% down vacancy. That,
I believe that.
yeah,
I
okay.
think that's, if I believed your explanation of that, and having two less cars and only having those spares based on that occupancy works.
Okay. Now, assuming we're at a lease, correct?
Yes.
A lease only company like Virgin. $2.40 airport fee. Who's responsible for that under your leases?
Under my leases?
Yeah.
Yeah, my leases, I have a base. And then the pass-throughs, they're responsible.
Right, so that wouldn't be Virgin's responsibility. They would give, so every day they come to you when they show, they have to be there once a day, right?
Yeah, that's not how we check out.
Okay.
Yes, we inspect the car then, but has nothing to do
I
with.
mean, you're gonna get,
the extras.
you're gonna see on the AVI how many times they did a drop or a pickup, right?
Correct.
Okay, so at the end of the week, let's just say they did, make it easy, 100 pickups at the airport. They're gonna drop you 100 times 240 in cash or whatever.
Correct.
Okay, so then you take that money directly to pay
Pass-through, yes.
Reed. Okay, so that's not an expense on a lease program.
Not a lease. In your pro forma, nowhere in the pro forma did you address it. So I just pointed out you were going to charge $750 a week and did a bunch of math. It didn't say $750 a week plus all pass-throughs. So I
Understand.
pointed out that if you're going to just charge a flat $750, you're missing a bunch of expenses. But if it's $750 plus all the pass-throughs, then you're right, they're not expensive. They're pass-throughs.
Okay, so if I had a company like Virgin, but 1/3 the size, and I did 35 leases, and I put in my contract with the lessee that they're responsible for all applicable taxes, 3%, excise tax, the airport,
Trip charge.
the trip charge, the technology fee, all that stuff. That is not, would you agree with me that that's not an expense?
Well, it would be income and then an expense. It would be a pass-through.
Pass through.
Yes.
I think I asked you this earlier. I'm just going down your testimony. You're paying less than $6,300 per medallion for your current insurance with $1 million, right?
No, I'm probably right in that ballpark, but I have a $25,000 SI.
Okay. Now, this is I extrapolated this next one. 200,000 trips.
Yes.
I went back through my old pro forma and I pretty much never mentioned that. So I assume that you took by the amount of the cars that were being driven, times it by the average trips per day times 365 to come to that 200,000 number.
I do not remember what was in that old pro forma. I'd have to look at the pro forma, but you would have had something in there talking about the number of trips. And that's how I came up with the miles. You had the number of trips in there and I rounded it to 200,000.
Okay. But you're basing that 200 trips, 55%, but obviously I can go back and I can look at the average rate that, or the average fare was $19 or something like that, right?
1938.
1938 is what I think I used. I mean, I know that there's a $3, what, $3.40 get-in fee, startup,
The drop is.
the drop, $3.40. And then if the average, let's say mile was now higher, correct? The average rate?
I don't know what the question you're asking.
I know, is the average rate today with the new fuel surcharge, are you getting more profit, right? Or more revenue?
With the fuel surcharge, the trip costs more money. So yes, there's more revenue,
Okay.
not necessarily more profit.
No,
but
I
yes,
know.
more revenue.
No, I know.
Yes,
Okay,
the revenue per trip went up because the rates went up
Okay.
and the trip stayed pretty much the same distance.
Okay, but as far as this is your opinion, and I'll take it as it is, the 6.5 miles is your average trip with a fare and without a fare.
Right, so what I did was in your pro forma, there was a number that was over 200,000, but close to 200,000 for trips. So I basically said, I know how long the average trip is. It's 3.6 miles. It's a little under 4, a little over 3.5. It fluctuates. I also know in the industry that the paid mileage percentage is anywhere between 50 and 60. 50 bad, 60 is really good. So again, I just picked a number in the middle, 55%. So I was trying to figure out how many miles drive to do 200,000 trips. And I reverse engineered to come up with how many miles you were going to go to figure out what your maintenance cost would be at what I believe the maintenance cost per mile rate is. That's how I came up with this.
Okay,
It was reverse engineering the miles because you didn't put miles in your
understand.
performer number.
In response, you filed backup information for this testimony, correct? With your actual,
Interrogatories?
your work orders. That
Yeah,
show
invoices, the exhibits.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Do you have that in front of you?
So, yeah.
Use this. Yeah.
Yeah. Which one we talking about?
First, which is called Exhibit 6. It's your completed work order summaries.
Okay.
Let me ask you this before we start. This is a multi-service leasing document, correct?
The garage repair company, yes.
Does Desert Cab have mechanics?
No,
Does Virgin have mechanics?
no.
Okay. Here, it's looking like you are billing your own company, multi-service leasing, is billing Desert Cab Company $68 an hour for a mechanic, correct?
Correct.
Okay. If I, independent cab, had my own mechanic on staff, on payroll, and I didn't have to sub it out, would my labor costs drop by 70% if I'm paying him $20 an hour?
For the mechanic?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
but not the rest of the shop cost.
I understand
of the
that.
Supervisor of the mechanic and.
Okay, so I see the first page, but I'm going to skip that one because I think you made a typo on the first work order. Where it says parts, and it says 15,866. Would that be, shouldn't that be in labor?
Oh, maybe, yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So-
but it all adds up to the same number, yes.
No, yeah, so let me do this. I'm going to go to the next page because I think your handwriting matches the numbers.
Okay.
So on the parts, you bill out to your transportation, your cab companies, right?
Yes.
Is there any markup in those parts?
On these work orders, no.
Okay,
I historically did. And then I realized I'm paying sales tax on the price I sell it myself at. So I
That's-
realized I was marking it up and paying the government. So no, I don't mark the parts up anymore because I was just throwing money away.
so if a car needs an oil filter, you drive down to Checker Auto Parts, buy oil filter for $20, you pay Desert, it's a pass-through?
No, I have $250,000 worth of
I know.
parts in my parts
I know,
inventory.
I'm just saying, is it a pass-through? The costs, are they a pass-through to Desert
I
Cab?
do not mark the parts.
Okay. So if we were to look at this number here of labor costs, $33,940.39, do you see that?
Yes.
If I were to reduce that by 70% by having my own in-house mechanic, would that number go down?
The labor cost is not just the cost of the person working on the car. It's the cost of everything that has to do with running the garage, which is the mechanic supervisor, the software, the picking up the crushed oil filters, all of the things that go with it. So just, if I just put in the cost of the mechanic in there, that's not what is representing what it costs to fix the car, because there's more than just the mechanic. There's the lot attendant that pulls the car in for him. So I believe that labor cost is the mechanic and everything that goes with the mechanic. So I believe that is I mean, if you go to the dealership, it's $120 some dollars an hour, $140, now $150 if you were to take it to a dealership. This $68 is probably on the cheap side of what it costs to run a garage. I'd say.
It says, I list the names of your mechanics, George Garcia, James Milstead. You see that?
Yes,
Okay. That's the person doing the work, right?
that is the actual mechanic that worked on the car.
Okay. Doesn't show anywhere on this thing added costs for the lot boy or anything like that. Would you agree?
I do.
Okay, so let me ask you this, and I understand that you have to sublet some of your mechanic work to body shops or something like that. Is that right?
Yes, we don't do any heavy engine work. We don't do any painting. So we'll send cars to transmission shops, we'll send cars to body shops, things like that.
Okay, so of your in-house labor that you have handwritten, $28,077.20.
Yes.
If I reduce that by 70%, that would drop the maintenance charge to 16 cents, not 25 cents. Is that your understanding?
If you just put in the cost of the mechanic and the labor, yes.
Okay, so me not subbing out my work is cheaper. My mechanic's doing my work cheaper.
I don't believe you can do it any cheaper than I'm doing it for.
Well, you're charging Desert Cab, multi-service leasing, 100% different company, right?
Correct?
And you said it was a maintenance company.
Yes.
Okay, so you are the same as, let's say, Penske or AutoZone.
No, because Penske is operating, try to operate at a profit. Multi-service leasing isn't.
Okay, but you're billing them out at $68 an hour, correct?
Yes.
How much are you paying the actual mechanic that's doing the work?
It depends, anywhere from $32 to $19, something
Less than 68.
for the mechanic,
Yes.
but not for his supervisor and not for anything else in the garage.
Okay.
I think we're arguing the same thing.
I mean, but you would agree if I had my own mechanics, my own lot boys, my own supervisors at the shop, it would be cheaper than 25 cents a mile.
I disagree because I don't think you're adding in all the other costs that aren't in there. The 25 cents is building in all the costs that are more than just the mechanic. The cost to maintain the garage, to fix the equipment that you're going to have your, the technical scanners that I talked about, the updates to the software, all of that is another cost that is all built into your maintenance cost. It's not just the cost of the mechanic. That's all I'm saying. I'm not arguing with you. I'm telling you that I don't believe that the cost of a mechanic is the only cost to fix a car.
No, I understand. There's parts. I can see it. There's parts, hours worked, and labor.
And the supervising of the mechanic,
Okay.
the mechanic's assistant, those other people that aren't billing hours
I know.
that are working in there.
You
Those
have-
are the people.
You have, let me say, on a minimum, 300 or 400 cars, correct?
Yeah, over 400.
Over 400 cars.
Yeah, right now.
I have, if by the grace of God, I get this, I have 40 cars to look after. Do I need the overhead that you have? Do I need a supervisor? Do I need this? Do I need this person? Isn't it a much smaller operation?
Well, again, I believe in order to be efficient and be able to operate, you have to have people there to fix the cars. So in order to have the people fix the cars, again, I guess you could have operate a shop with no supervisors and have the mechanics on call, but again, that doesn't work. So you have to have the mechanics in it all around for when it breaks down, or have a whole bunch more spare cars, knowing during the weekend, we're not going to have people or supervisors or have the garage. The idea of what I'm saying is that you need to have all these people to account for the breakdowns, or else you got to have a whole bunch more spare cars.
But
And
if you have 400 cars, over 400 cars, and I have 40, I'm roughly 10% of your size.
yes,
I don't need the other 90% of overhead that you're carrying to successfully manage and maintain my fleet. Is that correct?
no, when I apply for the software for the scanner, they don't ask me, how many cars do you have? It's $2,500 a year for the software to get the codes out of the car for chart for Dodge, another 2,000 to get the ones to read Fords, another 1,500 to get this. And that doesn't matter how many cars you have. Well, it does. The more cars you have, the more you get to spread it across. That's my whole point of the smaller the operation. If you want to have the expensive equipment and the things you need to fix cars nowadays, all that stuff that you need to have needs to get spread over more cars, not less cars. That would be my argument. That you
or
do
the,
need.
or the inverse, less cars, less problems.
No, you're going to have the same problems. And the only way you're going to be able to fix them if you don't have the equipment is to take to the dealership and pay $150 an hour and wait 2 weeks for you to get your car back, which means, again, pay way more and have way more spares because your drivers, employees or lease are going to be saying, where's our car? And be like, I have several cars at the dealership that have been there since February. I mean, it's, if you don't, if you have a very small fleet and you can't fix them yourself and you've got to send them away, you're going to have some serious problems. So I disagree with you on saving the price. I think it's more expensive. Same price, just less to spread it across.
Is it true that the owners, Mia and Claudia, would be able to do the daily vehicle inspections? Is that something we could do?
Absolutely.
Okay, but I don't need to have a cost for it if that's what we're planning on doing.
An employee of the cab company has to inspect the vehicles. So yes, it could be you guys. Yes, it could. Probably not very efficient use of your time, but yes.
Again, the new pro forma that you saw did incorporate your 25 cents per mile for maintenance.
Yes, it did.
Okay. So let's say, again, assuming everything that you're saying here is correct, that my expenses are too high and I'm going to be not profitable. Okay, let's assume that. Okay, we'll take you at your words, everything like that. Can you show me anywhere in NRS 706-8827 or NAC 706-453 where it is required to have a profitable company in its first year of operations?
I'm not aware of that.
Doesn't exist, does it?
I don't know. I'm not aware.
Okay. Would you agree with me that NRS 706-8827 and NAC 706-453 are the qualifications and criteria for determining whether somebody gets a CPCN?
To my attorney, I don't argue that.
Okay. And as you sit here today, you can't point out any law, statute, reg that says I have to be profitable in my first year.
I don't think there's,
Okay.
yeah, I don't think you'll be profitable in your first year, your next year, ever. At 35 medallions, in my opinion.
Should I
It
ask?
doesn't work.
Should I ask for more?
I believe that in order for it to work, you have to have a lot more. Yes.
Okay.
Or two. One.
Would you agree with me that the only financial requirement in the regulations is to maintain the 20% equity rate?
Again, I'm not. I'm not sure. I don't doubt you that.
Okay. Are your companies profitable?
Yes,
If by again, chance of God, they grant me a certificate, you've had 2.5 years to think about it. Are you gonna shut down your taxi cab companies because there's 35 new medallions?
no,
Okay, we went through this real quick. You make money by picking up passengers and taking them to their destinations, correct?
yes,
Would you say that's the same for the other carriers in the industry?
yes,
Okay. I mean, there's other things like advertising, credit card, but
Yeah.
for the most part. So I didn't want to limit you to that. And your companies, every company here has a limit on the number of vehicles that can be put out on the road at any time, correct?
yes, we have a set number of medallions, each company, yes,
Okay, and that's the same for the other carriers? They have a set number of medallions?
yes,
Okay. Would you agree with me that all of the companies put their vehicles out on the road in search of passengers?
I don't want to speak for them, but I do.
It's logical, right?
It's logical.
Okay. Is it's under that premise of 16 cab companies, each putting out their medallions, under that premise, is it fair to say that the less number of taxi cabs put on the road by the other carriers, the better your chances of that passenger getting into one of your cabs?
Take that again?
Okay, everybody has their medallion count, right?
Yes,
You put out all of your medallions on one day. Let's just say that. They don't put out their full number of medallions. They put out 50% of their allotted medallions. Is there now, because there's less cars on the road, right? Less cabs on the road because they're holding back 50%. Does that make sense so far?
yes,
Okay, so by them not putting out cars or the number that they could put out, the better the chance your cab is going to get that passenger.
in the short term, yes,
Okay. So the less vehicles on the road of anybody else, the better for you financially.
in the short term, yes,
Okay. Add 35 cars to the mix, and your chances of getting that passenger goes down. Correct?
if it's a fixed high of rides, yes,
Okay. Let's say you put out 200 cabs. Okay.
Yeah.
And you're the only one on the street. You're going to get 100% of them, correct? Those rides. You're the only cab company out there.
yes,
You add somebody else with 35 cars, and let's just say 50 cars, but your chances of getting that passenger has decreased by 25%, 50, 200.
again, if it's a fixed number of rides and they're going to wait, I mean, it all depends, yeah. If there's the person, if there's not a car there, he might take some other form of transportation. There's no way of knowing, but I'm not sure where you're going with it.
It makes sense. More cars on the road, the less chance you pick that person up.
I might object to relevance. They're just kind of bogged down here over and over.
I'm going to sustain the objection. Largely because the point's been made.
So
We're going to stand in recess for 5 minutes. Council, I expect you to be pretty focused when you get back.